What is going on, everyone? JP MMA here, back with a new video. We got no UFC card this weekend, so we're going to be doing a tier list ranking the past pay-per-views since 2024 and on to the present day. So that's, I think, starting at 284, UFC 284. We're going to be starting going all the way to UFC 314 that just happened last week. We got 5 tiers here: goated, stacked, good, average, and an absolute Shoitnabos waste of money. So without further ado, I guess we will start with the furthest one from now, UFC 283, which would be Jamal Hill versus Glover Teixeira. That card happened in Brazil. This was actually not a terrible card. I'm usually a pretty big fan of the Brazil pay-per-views because there's always so many Brazilian prospects, that have high finish rates and are climbing up the rankings, things like that. So, you got Gregory Rodriguez, Bruno Ferreira, 2 guys that have made it pretty far in the middleweight division so far. You got Gabriel Bonfim, getting a first-round submission, Jailton Almeida, a heavyweight prospect who's damn near a title shot at this point. The other Bonfim brother, both high finish rates. So even Daniel Marcos now near the bantamweight rankings. There's always some Latin American, Brazilian, a bunch of prospects on these Brazilian cards. The main event isn't great, although they did throw in another title fight as the co-main, Moreno versus Figueiredo. It was the quadrilogy though, so not the most hyped up card, but you still got Gilbert Burns. You got 2 title fights on there. Throw in a light heavyweight ranked bout. You got Shogun's retirement fight and a bunch of other prospects. At first glance, it doesn't seem like a great card, but it's actually not too bad, and I enjoyed that one pretty good. So Hill Teixeira, we're gonna throw in the good. It's not stacked, it's not goated, maybe even an average one. They did have 2 title fights, which honestly isn't that common nowadays. So good or average. We're gonna put average. Actually, we might change it as time goes on, but next one, UFC 284, Islam versus Volkanovski. This was the first fight they had. It was one of the best fights of the year. Definitely the highest level fight, Islam versus Volk. Volk did much better than we expected. The rest of the card wasn't that great. Just like I said with the Brazilian cards, those are usually pretty stacked with prospects. The Australian cards are kind of the opposite. Not a lot of prospects in Australia. You had Jack Jenkins. Malarkey is not good. Shannon Ross is terrible. Cooley Bao got cut already. Tyson Pedro's retired. And then getting into the main card, Jimmy Crute, Alonzo Menefield. These guys aren't ranked anymore. And that was a draw. Tafa versus Parker Porter's on the main card of this pay-per-view. This cannot go into a high tier. JDM, Randy Brown, that's a good fight. JDM, very impressive win over Randy Brown. Not a lot of guys finish Randy Brown that quick at all. So, and then you did have the interim featherweight belt. Yair versus Emmett. We got a submission there, but even though there was 2 title fights, the main co-main and headline fight were pretty much all that was exciting for UFC 284. Nothing else really. So, I'm not going to be ranking this one too highly. Where is this? I mean, I wouldn't say it's a waste of money because of the main event. So you got to go average. The main event. If the main event wasn't the main event, this would be in the waste of money easily. You know what I mean? So the main event really carried that card. Even the co-main interim title fight, Yair Emmett, wasn't all that good either. Moving on to the next one, 285, Jones Gane. This one was pretty stacked. Going all the way, we got Esteban Rivivics opening up the whole entire card, who's a really nice prospect as it is today. Damon Blackshear, Fareed Basharat, that would be a really nice fight today. 2 contenders in the bantamweight division. Cameron Simon, another young contender. Ian Gary on the early prelims. I remember I bet him by KO and he got dropped, comes back and finish it. So it's always interesting to see these top contenders / champs being on the early prelims of some of these cards. So Gary on the prelims, always what you want to see when looking back. Drix du Plessis, current middleweight champ and on his way to being middleweight GOAT at this rate. He's on the prelims. You got Cody Garbrandt, a past champion, on the prelims. You have Bo Nichols' debut. Starting off the main card, Gamrot versus Turner, a ranked lightweight bout. Those will never disappoint. The lightweight ranked fights, never disappointing whatsoever. Jeff Neal Shavkat was a war, to be honest. One of the most underrated fights of 2023. 2023. Shavkat continues his finish streak versus Jeff Neal. That was a war. Grasso upsetting Shevchenko, submitting her in round 4, and then you have John Jones return, getting, that was a little bit underwhelming of a fight, but it was John Jones' return. How would he do versus, the new guard at heavyweight? We were all wondering that, so that was a really good card. I'm going to put that in the stacked, not goated. There's only going to be a few cards on here that I'm going to put in the goated tier, but Jones Gunn is going into the stacked. I like that decision a lot. 286, Usman Edwards, the trilogy in London. Great main event. Leon, the underdog, coming into it after the head kick of Kamaru Usman in the second fight. Didn't know that Leon would kind of be able to prove that he was better than Kamaru Usman, because he essentially got beat for almost the whole fight in their previous matchup, but proves that he really is the best welterweight in the world. Gaethje Fiziev, do I even have to explain myself? Gaethje Fiziev as the co-main. The thing is, though, like the Brazilian cards, the European cards usually do have some nice prospects, but England is, it's all right in terms of prospects. Nobody too hyped up. Ludovic Klein, Jai Herbert, that went to a draw. CLD, you do have Lerone Murphy, Gabriel Santos. That's that would be a really nice matchup in today's world, but both guys pretty early on in their career, not a crazy fight. Then you have Makayev battling through that knee bar and eventually getting this mission. That was a cool moment, but you got Patterson, that England prospect, being knocked out. Chris Duncan, the Omar Morales, not a great fighter. Jack Shore's okay. Vittori Delidze, it's just not an exciting fight, especially today. So this is definitely a lacking main card. You don't like to see the WMMA fights on these main cards either of any pay-per-view. Gunnar Nelson, Barberena, this is just a layup for Gunnar Nelson. So it's just the main and co-main, which are outstanding main and co-mains, but it didn't really carry the rest of the card, especially since there wasn't a finish in either of the fights, although they were good fights. The main and co-main were great, but I'm gonna put it as an average pay-per-view card. Nothing really jumps out to me when looking at that lineup of fights, so we're gonna put in the average tier. Moving up, 287, Izzy versus Pereira, the rematch in Miami. Pereira gets knocked out by Israel Adesanya in the second round. Crazy moment. Kind of a fluke in my opinion. Izzy was probably roided up. I wouldn't put it past Izzy, because this was, he's a petty guy, and think about it from his perspective. He's lost in kickboxing to Pereira. He loses the first fight, loses his belt. I would see Israel Adesanya being very desperate in this situation and hopping on the sauce, if you know what I mean. And then he comes in with Gyno, gets a one-punch knockout. I know Pereira was weight cutting a ton in that fight, going down to middleweight, but even still, man, not making any accusations, but Israel Adesanya gets it done. The co-main, Gilbert Burns versus Masvidal, this is another just throwaway fight. It's really not necessary. Was this Masvidal's retirement fight? It might have been. Burns was a huge favorite. He didn't even get the finish. As you can see, there's about 81 total strikes, so really nothing happened. Font does fraud check. Adrian Yanez gets the first round knockout. That was hyped up moment, along with Kevin Holland knocking out Ponzinibbio. That was hyped up as well. But you got Raul Rosas getting fraud checked by C-Rod. A pretty stacked main card, to be honest. Nobody really in the top 5 besides maybe Burns was, but it's all these guys on the main card are names that you know and that you recognize, but besides maybe Christian Rodriguez. But even then, the co-main's throwing me off. A really nice title fight there for the main event. Gastelum Curtis was a war. Gastelum gets it done. You have Pyfer GM3 on the prelims there, and you have prospects like Bahamondes, Steve Garcia. So the Miami cards are always pretty good. So again, nothing really jumps out to me. I'm just gonna put it on the average. I'm actually gonna do good on that card. Let me know if you guys agree, because that's also kind of a toss-up as well. Next one, 288, Sterling Cejudo in Newark. This one was lacking a little bit. You have guys like Ikram Eliskarov, if I can say it right, but Parker Porter, Braxton Smith. Oh my gosh. I don't know how these guys made heavyweight, which is an absolutely absurd sentence to say. Look at that. I mean, that's bringing down at least one tier just for that fight. Chaos Williams, Kennedy Nzechukwu, Dober Frevola. Frevola cracks Drew Dober's chin for the first time. So that was pretty cool moment, but, the prelims, not great. Then Jourdain Crone Gracie. Crone Gracie is going to drop this card down another whole tier. But besides that, a pretty solid 4 fights. Evloev Diego Lopez. You guys have to rewatch this fight back. Diego Lopez making his UFC debut on short notice versus Movsar Evloev, the undefeated Russian. And Diego Lopez arguably wins the first round with submission attempts, but then gets kind of beaten up on the ground in rounds 2 and 3. So, crazy to see where Diego Lopez is now. Just fought for the belt, and Movsar has yet to fight for the belt, which is absolutely insane considering Diego Lopez just fought Movsar Evloev in his debut, while Movsar was a ranked opponent, probably top 10. So there also was a WMMA fight on this main card, but it was a pretty good one, I'll admit. Yan Xiaonan versus Jessica Andrade. This had kind of big implications on the future of this division. Yan Xiaonan gets the knockout over Jessica Andrade. So, Andrade was coming in as a pretty big favorite, if I remember, and Yan Xiaonan dusted her in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. She would go on to get that title shot versus Zhang Wei Li after that. So, a pretty good showing from Yan Xiaonan in kind of establishing her importance to the division and getting alerting everybody to how good she really is, because Jessica Andrade is kind of that fighter that is kind of a gatekeeper, kind of the older veteran that is still really, really tough to beat at this point, and she beats her and gets the title shot off that. But enough going over that fight. You got Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns. On paper, this fight is really cool. This was a pick'em fight going into this card. But as we know, Gilbert Burns was severely compromised going into this fight. He was really overworked. He was really overtrained. And if you remember, going over literally last pay-per-view, 287, yes, he was the co-main event of UFC 287, and he was the co-main event of UFC 288. So the guy's just a sicko when it comes to fighting too much for his own good. I think he really hurts his shoulder in the first round defending a takedown or shooting in on a takedown versus Bilal, and he essentially didn't throw his right hand, I think it was, for the remainder of the fight. Of course, Bilal still couldn't finish the fight, but wins essentially every round. So on paper, it's a good fight, but looking into it more, Gilbert Burns very compromised, and with Bilal not being able to finish my grandma, that was a 5-rounder too, so it really nothing interesting happened. And then the main event, Sterling Cejudo. It was a close fight, went to a split decision. I thought Aljo won 3-2. That's what the judges gave him as well, besides one. Cejudo put up a good fight, a lot of grappling, a lot of takedown defense, but not a lot of striking, no big moments, nobody got rocked or wobbled on the feet, things like that. Nobody almost got finished. So a good high level skillful fight, but not the most entertaining. So this is just going to be an average. I would even I hate to say there's going to be some cards where I'm going to put waste of money, but I don't want to be too frugal with that. I'm going to put, we're going to do waste of money. This wasn't a good card, to be honest, gents. Where in the world is that? Sterling Cejudo. We're going to put waste of money. We got to put one in there, and this is the card to do it. You know what I mean? Evloev, and was there one finish on the main as well? Not a lot of finishes overall, plus Kron Gracie, Parker Porter. Yeah, this is going in the waste of money. I hope you didn't buy this one. Next one, 289. Look at that main event. It is Amanda Nunes, the GOAT, but I mean, come on. 50-43, are you serious? That's the main event we're getting. Of course, Charles Beneil Dariush was the people's main event. In the co-main, Charles gets the first round knockout, but other than that, the Canadian cards aren't fun. I mean, especially if the Canadians aren't even winning. Dan Ige, Nate Landwehr, that was a fun fight. I mean, it's always going to be fun with Nate Landwehr. Mike Malott, the Canadian prospect they're trying to hype up, gets the second round finish, but I mean, who really cares, to be honest? Marc-Andre Barriou, the big plodster. Imavov, Chris Curtis, that would have been think about that today. That would have been a really nice fight. That's a no contest, a little beef between these guys, but Imavov was clearly winning. Amin Zahabi, Steve Erceg's debut, that was interesting to see. Beats a ranked guy in his debut. So that's pretty cool. I forgot that fight was on this card, but again, I mean, this is even worse than 286. So back-to-back waste of money pay-per-views. Thanks, Dana, for that. But he makes up for it. Dana does with UFC 290. I can tell you this is going to be a good tier. Esteban Ribovics starting off the card once again. Then we got Jesus Aguilar, 17-second knockout, right on the overhand. So, yeah, really cool to see. Simon versus Terrence Mitchell. Simon gets the first round knockout. I think it was ground and pound. Terrence Mitchell's terrible, though. An absolute tomato can. Vitor Petrino. He's been fraud-checked recently, but still another good prospect. Manyfield Crute, the rematch since they did draw in the first fight. Manyfield hurts him and then gets the submission, but both these guys aren't that high level, especially since they were in their rankings. Tatsuro Taira, Edgar Chairez, a pretty underrated fight. Taira kind of dominates, but as you can see, Chairez did hurt him at one point in the round and had him in a submission attempt as well, so a little bit of danger for Taira there, but ultimately ends up pulling it out. Robbie Lawler gets the knockout in his retirement fight. Absolute scenes. Nico Price probably threw the fight anyway. Bo Nickel gets the short notice. Val Woodburn knocks him out 38 seconds. I mean, that's probably... What are we doing? That was supposed to be Trayshawn Gore, maybe? Either way, I mean, it was 30. It's Val Woodburn. I mean, he's not UFC caliber in any way whatsoever. But it's still nice to see Bo Nickel. I love watching that guy, and I'm interested in his career. I'm sure everybody is, the way they're pushing him, giving him a main card spot in every card that he's been on so far. Turner Hooker, a really good fight. Both guys were very hurt. Turner lands that flush head kick on Dan Hooker. Then Dan Hooker comes back, rounds 2 and 3, almost finishes Jalen Turner. He gets saved by the bell in round 2 from a submission. As you can see, 225 total strikes. Yeah, that's a war. Of course, the lightweights always deliver. Dricus du Plessis, Robert Whittaker, the second round KO. Dricus establishing that he was an absolute no-joke in this division. And a surprising result, because I definitely was pretty confident on Whittaker and even Jalen Turner for that matter. Pantoja Moreno. This was a great fight as well. Very, very underrated fight. My opinion, Pantoja won 4-1, 49-46, but it was somehow a split decision. The flyweights always deliver as well. And then Volkanovski, Yair, Prime Volk, man. It's good to see Prime Volk back after that Diego Lopez win. But this was kind of the last performance where we saw what we think is Prime Volk outstriking him. taking him down, ground and pound, you name it. That was Brian Volk. So outstanding card. This was International Fight Week, so not surprising. Going into the GOATed tier, so bang. Moving on to UFC 291, Poirier Gaethje. Not an actual belt on the line, but the BMF belt, you know what I mean? So they're trying to make it important. Gaethje gets the second round head kick KO. Pretty impressive, pretty surprising too. Co-main, Pereira Blachowicz, really underrated fight. I mean, it feels like it's kind of crazy. You'd think, Pereira fought Jan Blachowicz too. So wild to think about, and he did the best out of pretty much anybody besides Ankalaev now. Versus Pereira, goes to a split decision, uses the grappling in the first round. Pretty entertaining fight. Derek Lewis KOs Marco Rogerius de Lima in 33 seconds. Starts it off with a flying knee, so that was a crazy moment. Bobby Green fights Tony Ferguson. I mean, outstrikes him. I mean, it's just old man versus an even older man, so subs him out cold with 6 seconds left. Holland submits Chiesa. I mean, oh my gosh, who honestly really cares about that? Gabriel Bonfim, Kopylov, one of my favorite prospects on there as well, but not a ton of fights. Only 2 early prelim fights. You know what I mean? What is that? 6 total prelim fights, so only 11 fights on the card. No title fight. The main card is decent, but it's just going to be an average card. A lot of these are just going to be average cards, in my opinion. Prelims weren't great. Main card's okay. No really standout fights besides, the main and co-main were great, but besides that, it's just too many old heads. Ferguson, Green, Chiesa, De Lima. You can kind of throw D-Lou in there as well, but yeah, moving on to Boston, 292, O'Malley Aljo. O'Malley gets the surprise knockout over Aljamain Sterling. Beautiful counter shot. Finally becomes champion. I'm sure Dana was happy about that one. You got the Zhang Weili versus Lemos title shot. Pure domination from Zhang Weili. Nothing really to say there. That's kind of what we expected. Machado Gary versus Neil Magny. This was a pretty entertaining fight. I was really rooting for Ian Gary, to be honest. And this was just domination. 91-27 significant strikes. Hurt Neil Magny's leg from the first leg kick and kept throwing him. It's a little surprising he didn't get the finish, to be honest, but as you can see, 30-24 in there. Dominant from Ian Gary. Nothing really else to say. Damon Blackshear, Mario Batista. This was kind of a robbery in my opinion, but a good fight between 2 prospects at bantamweight. Mario Batista is now ranked. Blackshear is probably near the rankings. Same with Vera versus Munoz. 141-113. I didn't remember the strikes being that much in this fight, but there you go. That was a pretty entertaining one as well. Cheeto pretty much wins all 3 rounds. Weidman's return versus Brad Tavares, pretty entertaining. As you can see, Weidman got leg kicked a little bit in that fight, so that's kind of nerve-wracking. But Gregory Rodriguez knockout, the tough freaking title fights. Come on, nobody really cares. The early prelims were absolute buns. Besides the main card, not really a good pay-per-view. The main card did deliver pretty well, though. I'm going to put this in the good pay-per-view column. Just because, honestly, the main event was a nice outcome, and there are a few good bantamweight fights on there as well. Honestly, I want to stop putting things in the average, but if they're average, they're average. So we got Sterling O'Malley. I'm gonna put him into the good. Next up, 293. This one ain't going into the good column, I'll tell you that. The Australia card, Izzy versus Sean Strickland. The big upset, Sean Strickland, unanimous decision, 49-46, as the plus 600 underdog. Drops Izzy in the first, and then pretty much just does the patented Sean Strickland jab and teep for the next 4 rounds, and And there you have it, a 49-46. Tuivasa Volkov. I mean, really, Tuivasa, guy's terrible. Gets finished by Volkov. Manel Cap dos Santos. This was a really entertaining fight, to be honest. Flyweights always deliver. Fast strikes. Manel Cap, flashy. Of course, Manel Cap always delivers on the entertainment aspect of things. Taffa Lane. It's a knockout, especially from the Australian hometown fighter, but it's just not high level. Same with Pedro Turcali, just not that high level. But it's the heavier weight classes, and the hometown guys did get KO, so I won't get on it too much. But it's just like, I mean, you have Manel Cap as a ranked guy in here. Besides the main event, you have two other ranked men fighters on the main card. That's not what you want to see. You do have Oldberg on here, almost at a title shot at this point. Chepe Mariscal, Jack Jenkins, a good prospect matchup, but it's just nothing crazy with these Australia cards. So this isn't going to be great. Do I put waste of money? It depends how you view this main event. Do you view it as, oh, this was really cool, we saw a huge upset, or it's just a Sean Strickland kind of boring decision apart from the first round there? I'll put it as average. You have some nice KOs here. Manel Cap was entertaining. I'm going to put it as average after I just said that I don't want to keep putting things in average, but it is what it is. Is Adesanya Strickland. We're going to put him over there. Moving on to UFC 294. Islam Volk, the rematch. Of course, we see the head kick knockout by Islam. Poor Volk, but still nice to see Islam building his resume. Khamzat versus short notice Kamaru Usman. This was a great fight. Khamzat gets the majority decision, takes Usman down 4 times. Usman was only taken down once before that in his whole career, at least in the UFC. And Usman battles back, wins rounds 2 and 3. So one judge gives it the draw because there was a borderline 10-8 by Khamzat in the first round. But the other 2 judges give it 2-1 to Khamzat. So very close fight, to be honest. It could have been a draw. Some people think it was a draw. So really interesting to see. And Usman seems like he still has it, though he's on a losing streak. And Khamzat really getting up there with the really good wins on his resume. The Johnny Walker Ankalaev no contest. The legal knee from Ankalaev, then the very, very controversial stoppage from the doctor. I think he asked Johnny Walker, where is he? And he said he was in the desert, and I guess that wasn't good enough. It was a whole weird situation. These guys literally tried to fight. Afterwards, Johnny Walker pushed the ref. It was kind of funny. Ikram gets the first round knockout, as he should have. Said Nurmagomedov gets the first round finish as well. He was my lock of the card, so some good Russian prospects getting first round finishes. Tim Elliott Makayev, a ranked flyweight fight. Makayev gets submission there. Peak, Trevor Peak, always an entertaining fighter. Victor Henry, Javid Bashrat, no contest. So it was a very weird fight. A lot of no contest and stoppage and fouls and eye pokes, things like that. Victor Henry gets absolutely slammed in the nuts, and that's the reason that it went to a no contest. The doctor comes in and said, bro, you didn't even get hit in the nuts. That was kind of criminal, to be honest, from the doctor, the same guy that called off the Johnny Walker Ankalaev fight. So I don't think he'll be back in the UFC. Dumas Zaitar, I mean, Jubilee, more entertaining that it was a meme rather than the actual fight. Naimov beats Nathaniel Wood from just numerous eye pokes and cheating. So pretty criminal. Sharamagomedov's debut opens up the main card, opens up the whole card, outstrikes Bruno Silva, but Silva, a guy who's 0-7 by submission, takes down Shara multiple times, and Shara even outstruck him when he was on bottom, which is pretty insane. So the Abu Dhabi cards always deliver. Stacked or goated, I'm going to put it at stacked. Not quite at the goated status, but still really good, and pretty much every Abu Dhabi card is going to be at least good, probably stacked or goated. Moving on to UFC 295. This was at MSG. This was supposed to be John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. That didn't happen. Aspinall had to fill in versus Sergey Pavlovich. If you can find the damn thing. Did I skip it? I skipped it. Aspinall versus Pavlovich fills in as the interim heavyweight fight. That was the co-main event because that's an interim fight. The main event, Pereira, Yuri Prochazka, that was short notice, I'm pretty sure as well. Pereira gets the second round knockout. This was kind of the first time that we saw Pereira versus Prochazka, and it was even closer than the second time, so at least that's pretty good. Aspinall gets the quick knockout over Sergey Pavlovich. Happy for Tommy Boy there. Gets the interim belt. Still has the interim belt, if you guys were wondering. And yes, this happened in 2023. An absolute disgrace. Probably the best mixed martial artist in the world, Benoit Saint-Denis, gets the knockout over Matt Frevola. An absolutely sick moment. Just head kicks him off the break. Frevola's kind of circling away. I'm kind of, a lot of guys do that, and they're kind of agreeing, okay, let's reset and get back into the pocket. Benoit just isn't having that and just head kicks him right in the forehead. Out cold goes Matt Frevola. Diego Lopez, quick knockout over Sabatini. It's just insane to see that he was plus 110 in this fight, and to see where he is now, it's just crazy. Same with Aspinall. That was around a pick'em. Doesn't show it, but that fight was a pick'em as well. But yeah, Diego Lopez plus 100 gets the very quick knockout over Pat Sabatini. Steve Erceg gets the win over Alessandro Costa, another future title challenger. On the card there, Matas Rebecki, a great prospect at lightweight. Sadikov, Borshev, two good lightweight prospects. Borshev kind of not anymore, but this was a war. Both guys were very close to being hurt at some point in the fight, and it went to a draw. So not all draws are bad. You got my boy Joshua Van on there, putting an absolute beating on Kevin Vorhas. So I might have hit a body shot record in that fight. It was one of his fights. Maybe that, maybe not. But Emers Bazuki as well. Nothing crazy there. It was a knockout. So a good amount of finishes on this card. A lot of bangers, to be honest. Joshua Van, Sadikov, Borshev. You got Rebecca on there, Steve Erceg, Diego Lopez, Benoit, a bunch of prospects. You got two knockouts in the main and co-main for the interim and undisputed belts. So this was a pretty good card. I'm going to put it in the stacked card, although we didn't see Jones Miocic, probably for the better, to be honest. So thank God we got Aspinall and Pavlovich and Pereira Yuri to step in. Those guys are absolute gangsters. Where is it there? Here we go. Pereira Prochazka. We're going to put this in the stacked column. And then the last one of 2023 that we'll be going over. In December, we got Covington versus Edwards. This was pretty criminal. The card wasn't that bad. It was just the main event. Edwards Covington. I mean, really, Colby did not deserve this in the slightest. And what does he do with an undeserved title shot? He just puts out an absolute shite in the bus. Doesn't throw. I think he did get injured early into the fight, but either way, I mean, Leon, obviously, in his past fights, has been beaten pretty badly, so this is an even worse look for Colby Covington. The co-main, Pantoja Royval, really nice fight. Pretty dominant for Pantoja, just because Royval couldn't really get up from his control, but either way, a bunch of strikes landed. Flyweight title fights are always going to deliver. Shavkat versus Wonderboy. Great match on paper, but just boring. I mean, Shavkat did what he probably should have done and took down Stephen Thompson and eventually submitted, the first guy to submit Stephen Thompson. So, definitely the most boring Shavkat fight we've seen in the UFC, but still kept his finish streak alive. Pimblett versus Tony. I mean, he kind of struggled in this fight. Not really, but kind of. He kind of gassed out later into the fight. But, pretty dominant nonetheless versus Tony Ferguson. And it's just like, we shouldn't be giving Paddy Tony Ferguson, so it's kind of a throwaway fight, just a fight to build up Paddy's resume. Emmett Mitchell, one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen. Sucks for Bryce. That happens to open up the main card. Manifield Jacoby, a ranked light heavyweight matchup. This was actually a pretty fun fight. Jacoby comes in as the decent favorite. outstrikes Manyfield the whole fight, but Manyfield lands the much bigger shots. I think had 2 knockdowns, which stole basically 2 of the rounds, and he stole the decision away as well. Garbrandt Kelleher. Garbrandt gets the first round knockout over old man Brian Kelleher, so that was pretty cool to see as a fan favorite from Cody Garbrandt, but it's not like that had anything to do with the rankings. Ulan Bekov, Andre Fili, Shamil the Meal, Gaziev opens up dominantly in the main for the card versus Martin Budai, so that was pretty cool to see. I think that was his debut as well, so we got Shamil's debut. That's got to bump up at least 1 tier for this card, but either way, it was a nice card. Just some of the fights that we thought would be a little bit better, like Shavkat and Thompson, and Edwards versus Covington didn't really deliver like we thought, but it was still stacked. On paper it was stacked, but how it played out, it only played out as a good pay-per-view, so that's where I'm going to put it. So that is 2023. We've gone through 2024 and the few pay-per-views we've had in 2025 in part 2 in the next video. So if you guys enjoy the content, please leave a like, subscribe, all that, and that is it for me.